She mocked a disabled man, refused to apologize, and dismissed the backlash, until Kash Patel quietly pulled back the curtain on everything she didn't want the public to see. It wasn't the first time a politician made a reckless remark, but this time it hit differently. The clip was short, just under 20 seconds. Jasmine Crockett stood at a microphone during a human rights campaign fundraiser in Fort Worth, Texas. Her tone was sharp, mid-rant about Governor Greg Abbott's stance on LGBTQ rights. "Governor Hot Wheels," she said with a smirk. "Wants to roll over everyone's freedom." A few chuckles, a smattering of claps. But by the time the clip hit Twitter that night, the reaction had changed. The laughter was gone. Outrage had taken its place. Crockett, a first-term Democratic representative from Texas, was no stranger to fiery speeches and viral one-liners, but mocking a man in a wheelchair? That crossed a line. The internet exploded. Hashtags trended. News anchors dissected every frame of the video. Within hours, journalists were calling advocacy groups, political strategists, and even Abbott's office. The backlash wasn't just from conservatives, it was bipartisan. Even on The View, usually a safe space for Crockett, co-host Ana Navarro frowned at the screen as the footage played. "I don't care who you're talking about," she said. "Mocking a disability is never okay." In Dallas, a conservative veteran named Bruce Halterman, who lost both legs in Iraq, filmed a response from his wheelchair. "We can disagree on policy," he said, his voice steady. "But when you go after a person's body, you're not attacking their ideas. You're just being cruel." His video was raw, emotional, and it spread fast. 3 million views in a day. Still, Crockett refused to back down. No apology, no regrets. In a follow-up interview with a local radio host, she doubled down. "I'm not making fun of anyone's wheelchair," she insisted. "I'm talking about how he bulldozes every freedom we have left in this state. Y'all are too sensitive." 4 words. Y'all are too sensitive. They would be replayed endlessly over the next 72 hours. But while the public firestorm raged, a different kind of response was brewing behind the scenes. In a small studio in Fairfax, Virginia, Kash Patel sat watching Crockett's clips. He wasn't ranting, he wasn't tweeting, he was studying. An old-school operator with a legal background and years in high-level intelligence roles, Patel had built a reputation for being strategic, a man who didn't just react, but calculated. He'd been watching Crockett for a while. To him, the Hot Wheels comment wasn't just offensive, it was a pattern. Rash words, zero accountability, escalating rhetoric that turned serious issues into performance art. He took a deep breath, grabbed his notebook, and started writing. While Patel was preparing his case, the public outrage refused to die down. 4 days had passed, and the media cycle was still locked on the scandal. Every morning show replayed the same footage: Crockett's smirk, her words, her refusal to walk anything back. Then, a new quote surfaced. From a recent podcast appearance, Crockett had joked, "Sometimes, I feel like Ted Cruz just needs to be knocked over the head, like hard, real hard." The timing was disastrous. Just 2 weeks earlier, she'd made headlines for saying Elon Musk should be taken down after he criticized a bill she co-sponsored. Her defenders brushed it off as a figure of speech. Her critics, including Patel, saw a different pattern forming. Inside Crockett's D.C. office, the tension was rising. Staffers spoke in hushed voices. Phones rang nonstop. Donors were asking questions. In the corner, Leon Haskins, a 30-something speechwriter, furiously typed, trying to clean up the latest mess. Across from him, Mia Granger, who handled press relations, looked pale, exhausted. "She doesn't get it," Mia muttered. "She thinks it's just culture war noise." Again. Leon nodded. "This one's different. It hit a nerve." Back in Texas, Democrats were being asked where they stood. Most dodged the question. Some issued cautious statements about focusing on policy, not personal attacks. But no one rushed to her defense. Not this time. Meanwhile, Patel wasn't just reacting. He was building something. Not a Twitter thread, not a press release, something bigger. He stayed off social media, working late into the night. His whiteboard, filled with notes. His small team combed through archives, finding old clips, panel discussions, and forgotten Reddit threads. Crockett had ignited a fire. Patel was preparing to control the blaze. Crockett had a history of aggressive remarks. One stood out, a heated exchange during a school board hearing where she snapped at a parent, accusing them of being on the payroll of hate. It was damning. Patel wasn't rushing. He knew how. The game worked. In a world addicted to speed, patience was his weapon. While the media cycled through headlines, he was building a case brick by brick. Then on Friday night, everything shifted. Crockett appeared on a late-night panel show hosted by comedian Terrell Jennings. The crowd was friendly, the atmosphere loose until halfway through the segment when Terrell's tone turned serious. "Real talk, Congresswoman," he said. "Do you regret calling the governor Hot Wheels? Some folks in the disabled community didn't take that well." Crockett smiled. If they knew what he was doing to people in this state, they'd call him worse. A long pause. Terrell blinked. The audience murmured. He leaned back in his chair. "That's your answer?" Crockett didn't flinch. "I don't sugarcoat." The silence was deafening. By morning, that clip was everywhere. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Cold, proud, detached. Not a misstep, but a pattern. Public support quietly thinned. Meanwhile, Patel was about to pull the pin on something that would blow the conversation wide open. The video wasn't flashy. No dramatic intro music, no quick cuts, no fire emojis. Just Kash Patel, seated in a plain chair, a legal pad in front of him, eyes sharp and calm. "Let's talk about Representative Jasmine Crockett," he began, voice steady. "Because this isn't just about one offensive comment. It's about a pattern. And I think the American people deserve to see the full picture." The video, titled Kash Patel, Enough is Enough, dropped at noon on a quiet Tuesday. 3 hours later, 400,000 views. By nightfall, over $2.1 million. Patel didn't yell. He didn't mock. He spoke like a prosecutor laying out evidence. Clip by clip, he walked viewers through a series of incidents, each one more revealing than the last. First, the Hot Wheels comment. Then, the Ted Cruz remark. The Elon Musk rant. A college panel where Crockett accused a student of representing fascism simply for asking about budget transparency. He let the footage play. Then, he paused. "Does this sound like a public servant?" he asked. "Or does this sound like someone intoxicated by attention?" It wasn't just criticism, it was clarity. He broke down the difference between passion and recklessness, between leadership and spectacle. Then, he zoomed out to the bigger picture. You can't govern if you're constantly dividing. You can't protect people's rights if you're obsessed with taking down anyone who disagrees with you. That's not public service, that's ego. People listened, not because of who Patel was, but because of how he said it. He wasn't trying to go viral. He was trying to be heard. At one point, he addressed veterans directly. "You know what courage looks like? You've seen it up close, I think you'd agree. Mocking a man's wheelchair because you don't like his policies isn't courage, it's cowardice. Hiding behind a microphone." That line hit hard. Veteran groups began sharing the video. Even some liberals who had dismissed Patel before started tweeting, "He's not wrong." In a quiet diner in Amarillo, a retired teacher named Marla Stone watched the video on her phone. She had voted for Crockett, donated to her campaign. But now, she stared at the screen, a knot tightening in her stomach. "I didn't sign up for this," she whispered. "I thought she was sharp. I didn't think she was mean." At the end of the 19-minute video, Patel didn't demand her resignation. He didn't sneer. He just looked into the camera and said, "We need better from all sides. We need leaders, not performers." That final line, simple, unpolished, stuck. By morning, headlines flooded in. Kash Patel holds mirror to Crockett's record, and it's damning. No attacks, just receipts. Patel's takedown gets applause across aisles. More tellingly, some Democrats began whispering to reporters off the record. "We've had concerns for a while." But Crockett wasn't backing down, and her refusal to pivot was about to cost her more than just headlines. By Thursday, the walls were starting to crack. Behind closed doors in the Capitol, the real damage was beginning. A group of Democratic strategists sat around a long oak table. Phones buzzed, laptops glowed. A few members silently scrolled through Patel's video, shaking their heads. No one spoke at first. Finally, Gloria Mencken, a veteran consultant, with more campaigns under her belt than she could count, broke the silence. "We've got a problem," she said. "And it's not just the comment. It's her pride. She won't let this go." Everyone in the room knew exactly what she meant. Crockett had refused every chance to clarify, soften, or even slightly walk it back. She was still tweeting, still defending herself, still retweeting memes mocking Abbott, doubling down like this was some kind of game. Meanwhile, Patel's video wasn't fading. It was gaining momentum. Morning shows, primetime podcasts, it was everywhere. And worse, people weren't just reacting. They were quoting it. Patel's quiet, measured delivery made it even more powerful. He didn't yell. He didn't insult. He simply let Crockett's own words do the damage. That's what scared her allies the most. It was impossible to spin. Back in Texas, her campaign manager, Lane Corbin, was struggling to hold things together. Donors were calling. One longtime contributor from Plano had already pulled out. "The wheelchair thing?" he said. "I can't defend that at Sunday lunch." That weekend, Lane sat across from Crockett in her campaign office, stress etched across his face. "We need to address this head on," he said. "Not just throw shade back at Patel. He didn't make this about him." Crockett barely looked up. "He's trying to erase me with facts and fake concern," she said. "I'm not giving him that win." Lane exhaled. "It's not about him anymore. It's about how you're coming across. People aren't just mad because you said it. They're mad because you don't care that you said it." Silence. Crockett turned back to her computer. "Then let them be mad." That moment, that defiance would cost her more than she realized. Over the next 2 days, the cracks turned into fractures. A major Texas newspaper ran a front-page editorial. "The Arrogance of Power. Why Crockett's Words Matter." Centrist Democratic senator, when asked about the controversy, gave a carefully worded response about choosing words wisely in leadership. Not exactly a defense. Then came the town hall in Lubbock. A woman in her 60s stood up and asked a blunt question. If she can say something that cruel and not even blink, what else is she willing to ignore? The room went quiet. People weren't just questioning Crockett's words anymore. They were questioning her character. Meanwhile, Patel wasn't celebrating. He had said his piece and moved on. When a reporter asked him about the reaction, he shrugged. "It's not about a viral moment," he said. "It's about accountability. That's all." That single sentence said more than some politicians manage in a full press conference. He didn't gloat. He didn't spike the football. That's what made it land even harder. Inside Crockett's circle, things were unraveling. And the real pressure hadn't even hit yet. The air inside her D.C. headquarters felt different now. The once buzzing confidence had flattened into silence. Staffers were working, but the energy was off. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was making eye contact. Behind the frosted glass of the conference room, Crockett sat with her inner circle. 5 people who had been with her from day one. Lane Corbin, the campaign manager, Mia from press, Leon, the speechwriter, a junior aide named Roxy, and Gerald Spence, a longtime political strategist who had flown in from Austin that morning. The mood was thick. Gerald cleared his throat. "We need to be honest. This isn't going away. And if you keep pushing the same tone, it might be your seat on the line next year." Crockett leaned back in her chair. "So you're telling me to apologize for telling the truth?" Gerald's brow furrowed. "No. I'm saying there's a difference between speaking truth and torching the room while you do it." Roxy, young and loyal, tried to chime in. "But people love her for being bold." "They did," Mia said flatly. "Now, They're just tired. Even the folks who like the fire are wondering if it's just fire, and nothing else. Silence. Leon slid a folder across the table. "This is the coverage from the last 36 hours, he said. Crockett opened it. Headline after headline stared back at her. Jasmine Crockett's joke isn't funny anymore. Patel's case is surgical and she's bleeding support. From fighter to flammable, what happened to Jasmine Crockett? She exhaled. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. She closed the folder. I'm not groveling to that man. No one's asking you to grovel, Lane said carefully. But maybe a real statement, from the heart. Not a tweet, not a joke, just honesty. Crockett looked around the room. You all think I've gone too far? No one answered right away. Then Mia spoke. I think you forgot that words don't always make you powerful. Sometimes they just make you noisy. The sting in her voice landed like a slap. Crockett didn't respond. She turned toward the window, watching the street below. People passed by, umbrellas up against the drizzle, carrying coffee, holding briefcases, probably not thinking about her at all. That bothered her more than the headlines. Outside the conference room, staffers glanced up as the door opened. Crockett walked out without a word. She disappeared into her office, the door clicking shut behind her. Inside, Gerald sighed. If she doesn't shift course soon, she's handing Patel the legacy while she's still in office. Leon looked up from his laptop. She still doesn't get it. It's not the joke, it's the pride. But pride wasn't her only problem. Her next public appearance would make things even worse. The auditorium at Southern Methodist University in Dallas was nearly full. It wasn't a rally. It was supposed to be a moderated town hall, part of a statewide listening tour. But with the controversy swirling, the media had shown up in force. Cameras lined the back wall. Journalists sat, notebooks open. Everyone was waiting to see if Jasmine Crockett would finally address the growing backlash. She walked onto the stage in navy blue, her expression taut. Her team had debated how she should handle it. Lane suggested a short, direct statement up top. Mia drafted something neutral, something grounded in responsibility. Crockett scrapped it all. She wanted to speak off the cuff. The moderator, local news anchor Ronita Bell, started with a few soft questions. Crockett answered crisply, maybe too crisp. At the 15-minute mark, Ronita shifted in her seat. There's something we can't avoid talking about, she said gently. Your comments last week about Governor Abbott, the public reaction, the Patel video. I think everyone here, regardless of where they stand, wants to hear from you directly. Do you regret using that phrase? Crockett inhaled. She scanned the crowd. Phones were up. Eyes locked on her. I regret, she said slowly, that people are more outraged by words than they are by policies that ruin lives. A long pause. Then she continued. Let me be clear. I don't care what chair Greg Abbott uses. I care about the bills he signs, the harm he causes. If that offends people, maybe they're not offended enough by what he's actually doing. A few claps, scattered, hesitant, but the silence was heavier. Ronita leaned in. So, just to clarify, that's not an apology? Crockett didn't flinch. I don't apologize for calling out oppression, she said, even if I do it in a way that makes people uncomfortable. That was the clip, the one that would go viral. Not because it was fiery, because it was off. The wrong tone, the wrong moment. Backstage, Lane rubbed his temples. She just handed Patel another headline, and she had. By morning, the clip was everywhere. But something had shifted. Even her own side had started to turn. Progressive outlets, social justice influencers. They weren't defending her. They were using words like arrogant, reckless, self-absorbed. One activist tweeted, I believe in boldness, but this ain't bold, it's blind. And Patel? He didn't say a word. No response video, no tweets, nothing. And somehow, that silence made his case louder. His restraint made him look composed, while Crockett looked like she was spinning. In one particularly sharp morning segment out of Tucson, a roundtable of Black and Latino veterans discussed the controversy. A retired Navy officer, Darrell Whitlock, said it plainly. "You don't get to lead people if you can't lead yourself." Another added, "You can be right about an issue and still dead wrong in how you treat people." By the weekend, the question wasn't whether Crockett had stumbled, it was whether she could recover at all. But before she could even think about redemption, someone else stepped forward, and what they revealed would take the scandal to an entirely new level. Sunday morning brought another unexpected twist, and out of everyone who could have spoken up, no one expected it to be Elijah Brennan. Former campaign staffer, one who had worked with Crockett back when she was just starting out. He wasn't a political rival, he wasn't a pundit, just a quiet, behind-the-scenes guy who usually avoided the spotlight. But something in him cracked after watching her town hall. That night, Elijah Brennan posted a 6-minute video on his personal Facebook page. No production, no makeup, just him, sitting in his backyard in San Antonio, speaking from the heart. "I used to believe in Jasmine," he began. "I thought she was the kind of person who spoke truth when others stayed quiet. But somewhere along the line it stopped being about the truth and started being about her." He paused, glancing off camera. "When she made that joke about Abbott, I winced. But when she refused to listen, when she dismissed the people who were hurt, I knew something had changed. She lost the ability to reflect, to be humble, to grow." The video spread like wildfire, not because it was explosive, but because it was real. One viewer commented, "This man just said what we've all been thinking. No hate, just disappointment." Even Crockett's allies felt the shift. Some stopped returning calls. Others issued public statements that sounded more like distancing than defending. Meanwhile, Kash Patel stayed silent. His video hovered near 6 million views, but he refused interviews. When a reporter caught him outside an event in Clearwater, Florida, and asked if he had anything to add, he simply said, "People see the truth now. I don't need to say more." That kind of restraint stuck with people, and it got them thinking. This wasn't just about one comment. It was about what we do when we're called out. Do we dig in, lash out? Or do we pause, reflect, acknowledge the harm, even if we never meant to cause it? In Crockett's case, her refusal to do that became the story. And in Patel's case, his response, clear, calm, focused, reminded people that accountability doesn't always come with yelling. By the end of the week, Crockett's approval ratings had dropped 10 points in her district. Talk of a primary challenger was already circulating. Her once blazing national profile built on sharp takedowns and viral moments had dimmed, not because she got silenced, because she silenced herself, with pride. A voter from Waco, Denise Garrow, put it best. In a local op-ed, Jasmine could have owned her words. Instead, she let them own her. There's a lesson in all of this, one worth repeating. It's not about being perfect. Politicians are human. They mess up. They say dumb things. But what separates a leader from a loudmouth isn't just policy. It's humility. It's the ability to say, yeah, I got that one wrong. And when someone like Kash Patel steps forward with facts, not fury, it reminds the rest of us. Truth doesn't need a megaphone. It just needs clarity. So the next time you see someone in power shrug off harm with arrogance, ask yourself, do they want to lead or just be seen? Because how a person handles criticism speaks louder than any speech, and in the end, words matter. But character matters more.